some of the iterative process of getting here, and um, obviously hot staging worked as seemingly as well as they were hoping it did last time. Obviously, they want to replicate that. Uh, Before we continue on, want to thank Yod for $2 super chat here, which could bring us to another part of our conversation, Steven, since he says or asks, do you know where and how this rocket will be landing? And that is part of what will allow for some of this more rapid cadence potentially of Starship if all goes well today, since in the FAA's approval of this launch license, they noted that, if they're able to see Starship touch down in the Indian Ocean intact, that could open the door to potentially another or five of these missions in 2024. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so for this flight, they plan to SpaceX aims to try to recover, or not recover, but guide autonomously the Super Heavy booster first stage back to the controlled splashdown just off the coast here in South Texas, out in the Gulf of Mexico. It's going to be a splashdown. And then the Starship upper stage, if all goes according to plan, will actually go into space, reach velocity close to orbital velocity, fly about halfway around the world, and splash down in the middle of the Indian Ocean. That's a change from the splashdown zone in the Pacific Ocean that they targeted back on IFT-1 and IFT-2. Of course, Starship didn't make it that far on those flights. So the change introduced for this flight will be to splash down in the Indian Ocean. That change allows SpaceX to actually attempt to relight a Raptor engine on Starship in space. That'll be a first, several firsts on this flight. That relight of the Raptor engine, they want to demonstrate that in vacuum because for future Starship flights to the moon, missions to deploy satellites into higher orbits, all those will require multiple restarts of Raptor in space, which hasn't been demonstrated yet, and they hope to test that and gather some data on how that works in this flight test.
Yeah, as you mentioned, that's just one of a number of firsts that they're going to be debuting with this mission. Also, around the time or a little bit before that, as they're coasting before a hopeful splashdown in the Indian Ocean, they're also going to be opening up the payload bay door for a little bit of that coast phase. This time around, there's no payload that they're going to be deploying since they're not getting up to orbital velocity. But we did see, and our friends at Lab Padre did actually capture some video of that payload door testing. So we have a visual idea of what that will look like. But it'll certainly be noteworthy to see it on orbit, since having obviously a functioning payload deployment capability is really the key that unlocks everything with Starship, certainly as it pertains to the Starlink constellation, right, Steve?
Yeah, that's right. I think what we saw last year from SpaceX is they're close to getting to orbit in Starship. I think they have a lot of work to do in getting Starship back to Earth and getting recovery routes down. Obviously, with the Falcon 9 rocket, it's called right out of the gate, Falcon 9 was successful in getting to orbit. It took a couple of years, actually close to 5 years, before SpaceX was able to actually recover a Falcon and reuse it. So as we move forward with Starship, I think they're going to have more tinkering and experimenting to do with landing each vehicle and reusing it. However, as soon as they get to orbit, they can start deploying Starlink satellites. So potentially even later this year, if this flight test goes well and they get to the trajectory they plan to, they can see a Starlink version 2 satellites flying on Starship, and they need to test this over opening and closing before they can put a real payload, a real satellite on board.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if SpaceX sticks with calling them Starlink version 2, since we've got the B2 minis flying right now, or if, as Elon suggested in his company talk earlier this year, they may be called version 3s. We will have to wait and see. Do want to note a change in our graphic, or if we can update this time, fellas, in the back. We do have word from SpaceX that weather is 70% favorable for this third integrated flight test of Starship, and they note that the current T0 liftoff time is targeted for 7:30 a.m. Central. So SpaceX leaning a little bit further into their 110-minute window. They do have nearly 2 hours to make a run at this. As mentioned, according to their meteorologists and their outlook on the launch weather forecast, say weather is 70% favorable for today's launch attempt. Unfortunately, they didn't add any additional color as far as that's concerned. And Stephen, you heard me mention near the top of the show that we don't have a fully clear grasp on the wind limit restrictions for Starship, so that's a bit of an unknown. But beyond the fog here, it sounds like weather should not be a great impediment. Obviously, we'll keep an eye on the winds, though.
That's right. Yeah, I think the wind gusts right now are in the 20-25 mile per hour range. I don't know.
Entonces, gente, ya todo aquí estamos iniciando, ya estamos dando inicio al stream. Estamos viendo la transmisión de la padre. Gracias por no tener copyright. Y vamos a ver también el de SpaceX, la página que aquí está. Vamos a ver directo desde X. Vamos a analizar la telemetría del lanzamiento. Entonces aquí está la telemetría del lanzamiento. Recuerden que no tuve tiempo para configurar, son las 5 y 8 de la mañana y estoy acá yo en 5 y 9. Estoy acá yo de chill, sí, da retraso el en vivo. Estoy viendo la hora y ya. Y entonces, miren, se despega, entonces ya comienza la asistencia y toda esa separación caliente, vuelve el booster y aterriza en el agua. Entonces, acá está Starship Ascendent, se inyecta en una semi-órbita, se apagan los motores, se prueba la puerta de dispensador de satélites y también entonces se prueba un motor Raptor que falta aquí, no sé por qué aún no sale. Aquí se supone que se va a prender un motor Raptor un ratito, luego empieza la reentrada de Starship y sobrevive a la reentrada, va a explotar en el agua. Esperemos que esta vez salga bien todo. Aquí está la transmisión ya. Entre tanto aquí en la padre sale que falta 1 hora 20 minutos.
Live launch coverage and tracking rockets. Can you explain to the audience what the jellyfish effect is and what they may be watching for?
Yeah, sure will. So when a rocket launches, usually within 30 to 45 minutes of sunrise, before sunrise or after sunset, typically it's better before sunrise because the rocket usually heads, from most launch sites, heads east into the sunrise. Of course, it's dark, it's still before sunrise at the surface, at the launch pad, but as it climbs into space and the sun rises above the horizon and the sun starts eliminating the expanding exhaust from the engines and those frozen crystals of exhaust and water vapor and other particulates that are put out by the engines, depending on what the fuel mix is. Those crystals are illuminated by the sun, and against the dark sky from a good position on the ground, it can be quite spectacular. It's like a giant jellyfish, also called a teardrop type appearance in the sky. Just a very spectacular visual as the rocket heads downrange. But it's usually best, from my experience, it's most spectacular with jellyfish around 20 to 40 minutes before sunrise. So we've just heard that the launch time is now 7:30 a.m. Central Time. That's roughly 8 or 9 minutes before sunrise here locally in South Texas. Still will be very, very spectacular. think a launch at 7 a.m. The weather, cloud cover permitting, would have been the most spectacular visual for the jellyfish effect. However, the better lighting at lunchtime will allow us to see the rocket itself a little better than we would at the open window. It would have, through video, appeared just like a night launch as it had. So it's still going to be a great view. The launch back in November was a few minutes after sunrise. So that was also very, very great show and very spectacular launch. Very clear skies back in November. We'll see how the clouds cooperate. So this morning, we're still seeing blue stars, so fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed indeed. Just as a place setter again, because we do have an adjusted T0 here. We are now currently at T minus 1 hour, 17 minutes, 35 seconds and counting. Assuming SpaceX doesn't make another adjustment in the next several minutes, we are about 2.5 minutes away from the point at which the launch director will take the poll on the start of propellant load. And again, that will begin with fueling of ship 28 up top, the Starship stack, T-minus 53 minutes, with liquid oxygen, continuing on with liquid methane, 2 minutes after that. If you're just now joining us, first of all, welcome aboard. Glad to have you with us this morning from a very foggy starbase in southern Texas, as we are tracking the third integrated flight test of SpaceX's Starship rocket. Again, weather per SpaceX is 70% favorable for liftoff. They're working their countdown towards that target at 7:30 a.m. Central. For our folks joining us around the world, that is 12:30 UTC. We'll get back to our conversation with Stephen in just a moment. But before we step too much further into this process, and as we are coming into the start of that poll being taken, I want to go ahead and bring you through the timeline of this launch and let you know what to expect over the next hour and 15 minutes. So things will get rolling, of course, with that poll being taken at T-minus 1 hour, 15 minutes, as I mentioned. I'll continue on with the loading of liquid oxygen on board the Ship 28 upper stage. It's followed 2 minutes later by the start of liquid methane loading on Ship 28. T-minus 51 minutes. Starship upper stage has a propellant capacity of 1,200 tons or 2.6 million pounds. It'll be followed by booster LOX load at T-minus 42 minutes, followed a minute after that by a liquid methane load on the super heavy booster, booster 10. And the booster has a propellant capacity of 3,400 tons or 7.5 million pounds, about 10 million pounds of propellant in all. And if you weren't with us at the very start of our broadcast, the Starship fueling process, as you may have noticed if you were with us last time, is quite different this go around, where they're loading propellant on board the Starship upper stage first, as opposed to the booster first. We'll delve into the change that made that possible in just a moment. Fueling process continues on with the after engine chill down for both the booster and the ship, T-minus 19 minutes and 40 seconds. It's a similar process to the Falcon 9 Falcon Heavy rockets that we see flying from Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, NASA's Kennedy Space Center, and of course Vandenberg Space Force Base in California. SpaceX will flow a small amount of liquid oxygen through the plumbing and the
Me
turbo
disculpan, por
pumps.
favor.
And on the booster, it helps protect the 33 Raptor engines from the risk of thermal shock and damage during startup. That bit of the fueling process remains unchanged since the last flight. Moving on through
Ya
T-minus
casi
3
estamos a
minutes,
punto
30 seconds. Booster propellant
de
loading is
recibir
complete.
la cobertura de
Fueling
parte de
on
SpaceX.
the ship upper
O sea, los
stage
dos
wraps
grupos.
up at T-minus 2 minutes and
Entonces,
50
a lo que
seconds.
recibamos la cobertura de SpaceX.
30 seconds before the T0 point, SpaceX launch director will verify
O sea,
go for
creo que ya
launch.
están en la cobertura de SpaceX.
In the final 10 seconds, the new flame deflector will be activated.
Perdón si escuché eso.
And as we saw last time, it seemed to prove effective at protecting the launch pad as the roads were able to open up fairly soon after launch. And much of the launch infrastructure was left pretty well intact. Finally, in the last 3 seconds before T0, Raptor ignition sequence begins. And unlike a Falcon 9 or a Falcon Heavy mission where liftoff occurs at T0, the Starship will lift off at T+2 seconds. But as SpaceX says, and I quote, at T0, the excitement guaranteed. We're now currently at T-minus 1 hour, 11 minutes, 57 seconds and counting. A couple minutes past the point which SpaceX will have made the call on the start of propellant load. So we're standing by and waiting to see if we'll hear word from SpaceX that in fact fueling has begun. It's unfortunately a little difficult with the fog to see the rocket, but we will check our various camera angles and views and see if we can get a tighter shot of the ship if possible. So as the frost starts to form on the outside, we may be able to see that a little bit clearer.
Igual se me había caído la
Essential liquid
cámara.
oxygen begins to be loaded. Before we get any further into our launch coverage, I want to bring back in Stephen Clark and introduce a couple of additional panel guests who are just now joining us. For fans of his channel and his very thorough updates on all things Starbase and the Starship program, we were joined, as we were last go around with IT2, by Zach Golden, with, again, YouTube channel CSI Starbase, known for its robust tech.
Transmisiones también hay bastantes.
Użyłeś sklep internetowy, ale zamiast zarabiać, to ciągle generujesz koszty.
Me equivoqué.
How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing all right. How am I sounding?
Que están
I haven't had a
spameando
chance to
gente.
test this mic out yet.
You're sounding good on my end, and unless the fellows in the back tell me otherwise, I think you're golden going out on the broadcast as well.
I see what you did there. Yeah, no, I'm glad to join. I'm sad that I wasn't able to actually be there in person this time around, but you know, you see, at least I was able to see the first two in person. It's unfortunate not being able to make it for this one, but you know, it's good to be at least be able to stream with you guys.
Yeah, exactly. I know it's difficult having first-hand experience making your way down to Starbase down there. So it's a trek in the best of times, and we just appreciate your insight and being with us on the stream. And hopefully we'll all be able to make the trek down for IT4. We are also joined this morning by a familiar voice for those coming to us from the Lab Padre side of this stream. Thomas is joining in here, who has been a longtime commentator with Lab Padre, very familiar as well with the Starship program, and has been covering the updates and changes to this launch and testing facility as it's gone through a number of iterations. Thomas, good to join. Have you with us this morning?
Good morning, Will. It's good to be here. Can you hear me all right, or am I too loud?
You're sounding good to me as well. I think
Awesome.
our folks on the back audio switch can make any modular adjustments if need be, but I think we're ready to have the conversation, gentlemen. So we are currently sitting at T-minus 1 hour, 8 minutes, 7 seconds and counting. Still got about 10 minutes and some change before we get into the fueling of it all. And that's actually where I'd like to start with you. And
Ok, entonces apuntamos por el jueves 14 de marzo. Pero el clima es 70% favorable para la tercera prueba de vuelo integrada. Starship, transmisión de vivo, comenzarán 30 minutos antes del despegue. O sea, no vamos a ver la carga del propelente. Y el clima ha estado malo, miren cómo se ha vuelto un lanzamiento Starlink. Tenemos acá un videito. Mucho que me cae el copyright. Entonces vamos a estar esperando acá. Faltando 35 minutos con 50 segundos para el lanzamiento. Entonces, bueno, cada vez falta menos tiempo para el lanzamiento, así que hay que ser pacientes. Creo que sí se ve la cámara, ¿no? No sé. Sí, sí se ve la cámara. Entonces, yo creo que se debe aplazar el tiempo. ¿Qué es esto? Yo creo que sí se debe aplazar el tiempo un poco. No suponía. Gente, quería enseñarles una sorpresa que tenía. Me la enseño. Crece que un momento que ya vuelvo. Gente, ya estoy acá ya de nuevo. Lo que les quería enseñar es esto. Vamos a hacer la transición de cámara completa a mis ojos. Aquí ya estamos. Avistamiento dentro de 2 minutos. La estación espacial.
First dismantling that we saw of this, and it was a pretty good show that they put on.
La evolución de la granja de
I
tanques.
want to say it was about 3 days overall that it took for them to chop all of this stuff up. Once they got those out of the way, they started adding some reinforcement onto one of the remaining water tanks, and this one that they're showing right here is the liquid nitrogen tank, or one of the liquid nitrogen tanks. And I always found this a little bit interesting because this is kind of something that I think maybe should have been there from the start.
Estoy posteando, no pregunten esa foto de dinosaurio.
You know, it is possible that had they had this kind of reinforcement, then the tanks wouldn't have been as damaged as they were after IFT1. You know, it seems like they really are focusing on not having these cave in from the pressure of those Raptor engines, and it's good to see that they've done that. But I do wonder if the tank farm would have lasted longer had they done something
Todavía
like
no
that.
dicen nada lo de SpaceX.
But at the same time, you know, I think they were kind of wanting to transition
Vamos a ver
into
el
these
de
horizontal tanks for a long time. Overall, they're, you know, lower profile. They're not sticking up in the air. They're a little bit further away from the launch site, the actual launch pad, and they're easier to protect. So they're able to put a wall that's taller than the tanks instead of the berm that they have adjacent to the launch pad, which is really only covers, I think, like maybe like a quarter of a or like a third of the tanks from the bottom up. So not very effective if you've ever seen
No,
any of
tampoco
the
dice
static
nada.
fires or launches from one of the views that kind of show it from a distance. You can see that the exhaust plume and pressure wave basically just goes
Todavía
straight
sé nada de
the
Musk.
horizontal,
Entonces todo
through
está
the
yendo
tanks.
bien, creo.
I've always found that kind of entertaining to watch it go straight through there because I think we all really expected the berm to send it over the
Duró
tanks
27
and not
minutos
through
con
the tanks
45 segundos
as it has. But I think
para
they're
lanzamiento, que
probably
digo la
excited
padre, no sé
to
por qué
get
dice
this
57
job
la padre.
finished
¿Qué
because
pasó?
it's taking a lot of effort to do this conversion and
¿Qué pasó la padre? Porque dice 57 minutos. Ah, bueno, ya casi está amaneciendo acá. Broo. ¿Qué pasó?
Stephen, we've also in Florida been watching the progress on both where things stand with the current.
Tengo que mover los otros envíos acá de la padre. Cámaras muertas. Esta creo que es falsa, esta no es el oficial.
Create, manage, and grow your business with Wix.com. Is the core of your business. That's why you need a fully made.
No, me van a fundar. Sí, sí, está el falso, está el falso. Es falso este coso. Es falso. Yo voy a buscar la padre. La... Basta como suena ahorita. Llevo aquí desde las 2 de la mañana, mano. Yo ahorita prendo directo. Vamos a quitar Flex Weaver. Pues no hay algo que esta cámara está más muerta. ¿Qué le pasa? Ni que le hayan atropellado. XD. No sé, güey, como que todo estaba mucha estática. Vamos, vamos a, vamos a revisar el SpaceX. Vamos a revisar otra vez el SpaceX y no han hecho nada también. Por si acaso. No han hecho nada. Amaneciendo. Me voy a ver el amanecer. Bye. He vuelto. Está amaneciendo, está bien bonito el amanecer. Están 48 minutos para el lanzamiento. Parece que es una estática. No sé. Ay, ya gasta la visión abortada de Starlink. Regreso de broo. Quiero ver el en vivo de SpaceX, oficial. Tranquilos que ya empiece, el mismo empezará. Miren esto de starship. Esto es normal. Perdón. ¿Qué es? Ay, 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 ¿qué es? Son una captura llena de satélites pequeños. Y los desplegan uno por uno, poquito a poquito. Vamos a ver qué pasa con este congelo. No hay lanzamiento. Control Sierra Fate. Un Falcon 9 es otra cosa. Mira cuántos lanzamientos hay de Falcon 9. Wow. La Dragon. 45 totales. Así es el interior de la Crackdown. No, cuando sonido por el copyright. Gente, revisemos dónde queda esto. Revisemos dónde queda. Starbase y vamos al clima. Ahora vamos. Sí me veo confuso. Ya casi, ya mismo empieza la transmisión oficial de SpaceX. Entonces vamos a donde está Starbase. Por acá. Si no me acuerdo era por aquí. Tengo dañado el teclado, se me escribe doble. Aquí está, miren. La zona de producción. Y más acá está. ¿Dónde está? ¿Dónde están los otros juegos? Un Boca Chica. Acá está, creo. Sí, aquí. Aquí es donde se lanza. Esta foto hace cuándo fue. Fue el primer lanzamiento. Mira cómo está la base. La cosa. La dañada. Bueno, la cosa es que está aquí en Boca Chica. Vamos a ver cómo está el clima en Boca Chica, Texas. Otra vez hoy, como se me dice. Está lloviendo. Ya está empezando la transmisión de Space. Igual del PC. Ok. Aplazaron el lanzamiento de nuevo. Aplazaron el lanzamiento de nuevo. Lo aplazaron debido al problema clima que hay. Bueno, no pregunten por qué pise eso. Bueno, entonces, yo cierro stream acá. Luego inicio stream de nuevo. Bueno, sin nada más que decir. Goodbye.